I think it's important that people understand that we have an entire city and we have 5 precincts, and I know oftentimes when we do press conferences or have conversations about summer crime strategies, it's usually focused on 1 or 2 parts of our city, and we have those for all parts of our city, so it's important that you hear from each of the inspectors.
All right, thank you all for being here. I'm Inspector Michael Sullivan of the 1st Precinct. So it's a pleasure here to be presenting on our combined public safety plans, particularly for the 1st Precinct downtown. I was just talking to somebody earlier before I got up here that each of the precincts have their own flavor. And they have their own individuality. But within each precinct, they can also be very eclectic. And so just a reminder, 1st Precinct, when you think of downtown, you have downtown, but 1st Precinct also encompasses Cedar Riverside, Elliott Park, that 15th and Nicollet business community as well. So it's quite an interesting place. But the 1st Precinct Public Safety Plan kind of focuses on 3 main areas, and that's police presence through community policing, outreach, partnerships that we've built, and as well as prevention. So on those three parts that I'll just briefly go through and highlight some of the plan that we have. So part of our community policing through increased presence is using our safe zone beats with our partners from MTC Police and the Hennepin County Sheriff's, and that is already up and running. And then through that increased presence, we also use extensively our bicycle officers, or they're called BRRRT, Bicycle Rapid Response Officers. And then we are also employing our Mounted Patrol Officers, which I have the joy of overseeing as well. And then in addition to that, we also have a significant number of beat officers downtown, both on our day shift and on our evening shift. And in collaboration with them, along with using our police reserves downtown, specifically in the evening hours in and around where our theater district is for increased police presence. And then one last partnership for an enforcement community policing model, we are employing our Hennepin County probation agents, both adult probation agents and juvenile-specific probation agents who actually walk the beat with us downtown. With regard to our outreach, so downtown is really engaged with a couple of outreach organizations. Those include the St. Stephen's Homeless Shelter, as well as the Youth Link for youth outreach, and our Youth Coordinating Board outreach workers. So we use the St. Stephen's, YCB, and Youth Link outreach workers both during the day and the evening hours, so the youth outreach workers, and it's a buffer for us as police officers to be able to approach folks and say, hey, do you need anything? What are you doing downtown? Especially youth, if there's a curfew issue or a truancy issue. And then our partnerships, there are several partnerships that are always ongoing. One of those is our Hennepin Avenue Safety Group, which meets regularly, and that includes the theater district folks, bar and restaurants, and we meet and we collaborate together on what can we do to make Hennepin Avenue safer. And then there's also the ongoing Safe Zone Advisory Group that includes the Downtown Improvement District. And then lastly is our prevention piece, and that's that's kind of working on little pieces along Hennepin Avenue, 1st Avenue, or even 15th and Nicollet. For example, one of our prevention pieces is that all of the lighting on 1st Avenue North was upgraded to LED. Another real cool collaboration with regard to prevention was lighting was also upgraded down at our 15th and Nicollet area as well. And then one of the last prevention pieces was a barrier that we put up along some of on 1st Avenue near the 5th and Hennepin transit station area. Anyways, with regard to that public safety plan, it's a lot more moving parts than that, but trying to pull that all together so that people who live downtown, work downtown, and visit downtown feel safe and are safe. So thank you very much.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Inspector Todd Loening from 2nd Precinct. That's located in beautiful northeast Minneapolis. Very pleased to be here this morning to talk about the summer strategy that we are implementing in the 2nd Precinct. Our efforts are always very simple. It's to make Northeast Minneapolis one of the safest places to live, work, and visit. Some of the main things that we're working on, 3 of them that I'll talk about real briefly. Our sexual assaults have increased year to date on the year. What does that mean? Right now we have 8 additional sexual assaults over what we had compared to last year. Second thing I want to talk about is burglary and burglary suppression and how we're going to reduce burglary. And then third, I'll talk about street racers. It's a real problem up in Northeast Minneapolis. It's been a historic problem for a number of years. So first, I'll talk about sexual assaults. Yes, we've had an increase on the year, and like I said, year to date, we've had an increase of 8 sexual assaults. We take every one of these very, very serious. Some of the things that we're working on, it's about bringing a heightened sense of awareness to the community members. If you will, sort of an education, further education, and asking folks to please come forward. If you are ever the victim of a sexual assault or you know somebody has been a victim of sexual assault, we're asking folks to come forward and report that. Let us do our best to try and help you. The second thing we're trying to do is we're really working with the patrol officers and actually the entire team at the 2nd Precinct. We want our officers to be very, very vigilant when they're out on the street on routine patrol. If they come across somebody and they see somebody that happens to be walking down the street or sidewalk and they're stumbling or they appear to be impaired, we're asking those officers to make sure they're stopping, checking on the person. Are they having a medical problem? Are they in fact impaired? Are they alone? Are they in care of good hands? We want to make sure that we get people home safely. And then the other thing that we're working on is really working with restaurants, bar owners, frat houses, anywhere where there are parties, alcohol being served. We're asking people to be very responsible, being very responsible in the manner in which they're consuming alcohol, making sure that people aren't being overserved. We're asking people like the students along the frat houses. We're asking them to please make sure that when they're hosting these social gatherings, that they're doing such in a very responsible manner. If they have somebody that appears to be over-intoxicated or highly intoxicated and unable to care for themselves, we're asking those students to make sure that they're taking time out and providing timely care to those people that are in need. We want to make sure they get home safe. So burglary, real quick. Yes, most of what we deal with in the 2nd Precinct is property crimes related. So when it comes to burglary, it's really a twofold operation. It's about patrol and prevention. We're always asking our community members to get involved, take ownership of their neighborhoods, become block club leaders, become block club members. We want the neighborhoods or the neighbors, if they see something suspicious, to please don't hesitate and call 911. Be the eyes and ears and keep an eye on their neighbor's home. Some of the things that we work from a patrol standpoint is really always analyzing current burglary trends and patterns. What is it that we're seeing and where are these incidents occurring? What days of the week are they occurring? What times of the day? And then we want to make sure that we're getting our officers out there, high visibility patrols, strong proactive enforcement. We're conducting alley sweeps where the officers are asked to literally patrol the alleys, look for suspicious behavior, and if they see unsecured garages, we've got a program in the 2nd Precinct where if the officers see an unsecured garage, we're asking those officers to stop the squad. Get out, try to make contact with the homeowner and educate them. Ask them, hey, the value and importance of making sure that you're closing and securing your garage door. If for any reason the person is not home, we do have a nice placard that we leave hung on the door for the residents. It's just kind of a good educational piece on how to avoid becoming the victim of a burglary. And then street racers. Street racers has been a huge problem in the 2nd Precinct for a number of years. It's something that we're working very closely with the businesses, any community members, anybody that's impacted by this. Street racers, when you think about it, you think about Fast and Furious and some of the problems that are associated with that. It's kind of like a lifestyle to some of these people. But it is inherently a very, very dangerous situation that this presents, where we've got young men and women that are lined up on both sides of a street, and here these cars are racing down the street. And if any of these vehicles were to lose control of that vehicle and go up into that crowd, we could have a lot of very, very serious injuries, and it's something that's very, very concerning to us. So we're working very, very closely with the businesses. We've got very large no trespassing signs posted. If you go out there in the area, one of the areas in particular is Spring Street Northeast between Industrial and Hoover. That's one of the areas that historically has been a problem with street racing. So it's something that we're providing, and we're putting out weekend details, asking the officers to be really active and making sure that they're out there. If they're seeing these cars starting to form, just having that strong law enforcement presence out there a lot of times will really shut down that activity. And other than that, we're asking the community members, if you see cars that are starting to gather in the area, if you see street racing, we're working with our team all the time and gathering information via social media on where and when these street racing activities are going to occur. And we want to make sure that we're trying to get on top of this as soon as we can. We're trying to send a strong message that this is not going to be tolerated in Minneapolis, and it's just a very, very unsafe practice. So with that being said, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Hi, I'm Catherine Johnson. I'm the inspector in the 3rd Precinct in South Minneapolis. I'm going to talk a little bit about just a couple of the new things that we're doing, have started recently or will be implementing for the summer months. The first is the 3rd Precinct is the largest geographically in the city. And one of the things that we have to think about is how we multiply our force, how we use things that are force multipliers that don't involve more cops necessarily. And one of the advantages we have in the 3rd Precinct is a new capability within the precinct to monitor our public safety cameras in the 3rd Precinct. Those cameras include places along Franklin Avenue, along Lake Street, along Chicago Avenue, along Bloomington, and then mobile cameras that the city has available to us. We now have the ability at our precinct and have an officer assigned to the task of monitoring those cameras on a regular basis, which has afforded us the opportunity to, as I said, have a force multiplier. There was a circumstance 2 weeks ago where a 911 call came in regarding a firearm being passed between 2 individuals out in public. The 911 caller is not going to follow those folks, but my officer sitting in that room in the precinct watching those cameras was able to find them on the camera, follow them for about 4 blocks into a business until the squad could get there, and we were able to arrest those 2 individuals and take that gun off the street as a result of those cameras. So utilizing those cameras to gather that kind of evidence following 911 calls, utilizing those cameras to gather evidence regarding narcotics activity on the street, to gather evidence related to prostitution and commercial sexual exploitation at the street level are things that we're using or doing with those cameras. The next thing is foot beats and increasing the number of officers assigned to foot beats within the precinct. By the beginning of the summer, we'll have about another dozen or more new officers in the 3rd Precinct, all of whom will be assigned to foot beats. It has afforded us the opportunity to add some additional foot beats in places that have historically been hot spots for us along Lake Street, along Franklin Avenue, and in Little Earth specifically. Currently, we have officers working foot beats in those areas in evening hours, and we're being able, with the addition of those new officers, we'll be able to increase the number of folks doing that and also add a daytime shift of officers with the ability to do that. Those foot beats, the goals of the foot beats are about engaging residents. It's about building relationships. It's about preventing crime, obviously, but more importantly, I think it's about long-term problem solving. That's what we ask our foot beat officers, our assigned beat officers to do, is to be out on foot, to be out on bikes, to engage with community groups, to engage with residents, and to work towards long-term problem solving as opposed to just trying to arrest our way out of a problem, because we know that doesn't work very effectively. The last thing I'll highlight is a collaboration between a host of people surrounding Little Earth, and it's what we call the Little Earth Cross-Sector Partnership. It was born out of a proposal for a burn grant study that was done in Little Earth related to crime, and it consists of members from Minneapolis Police Department, the Minneapolis City Attorney's Office, Little Earth, Hamlin University, Hennepin County Probation, and a host of people who came together to try and address why we were having crime issues in Little Earth and to study it in a way that helps us formulate strategies for the future. That grant process has completed. The grant itself is over, but as a group we decided that that partnership, the working relationships that were created as a result of that burn grant have helped us think outside the box a little bit in ways that we wouldn't have necessarily because of some of those partnerships. So we made a decision as a group to continue meeting and to continue with that collaboration as a means to continue those partnerships and hopefully solve some of the continuing issues that we face in Little Earth. So thank you very much for your time.
Hello, I'm Inspector Mike Jost from the 4th Precinct, and we have a fairly extensive strategy for summer initiatives, but I'm only going to cover a few of them today. The first is new beat officers. So it's no shock that the police department is hiring a lot of officers at this time. We're replacing elderly officers like myself that are starting to move on into greener pastures. But the chief was very generous to the north side this year, and I'm getting 12 additional officers assigned up on the north side as beat officers. And so for the summer, what you're going to see is a very large presence of uniform officers walking beats. And the strategy with them is going to be first to be highly visible in the business districts, the major thoroughfares, Penn Avenue, Broadway, Dowling, Glenwood, Lyndale, just anywhere that there's a lot of activity where we can get the biggest bang for our buck by putting uniforms out there and just interacting in the community, getting to know people from the very beginning of their career, making relationships out on the street that hopefully will carry on throughout the length of their career. I have spoken to other officers that had similar assignments when they first came on, and it is a good experience for them to immediately spend time out in the community. So that's our first strategy. The second one is called JET patrols, which is joint enforcement teams. And this is something that we've been doing in North Minneapolis for many years. And what it entails is Metro Transit, Hennepin County Sheriff's Office, State Patrol, and Park Police, and Hennepin County Probation, all send us officers on Fridays and Saturdays throughout the summer to add to our evening shifts. And we work in conjunction. Sometimes we're paired, sometimes they work, if they're comfortable working in North Minneapolis, they'll work just in their own teams. But we all meet and have a briefing before they go on the street, and they're given target areas for the night that, spend your time in this area when you're not doing something else, if you're not responding to a call. But it's really a positive thing. It's kind of a shock factor deal that you see different squads, different uniforms. But it's also a really good recruitment tool for the city of Minneapolis and the police department. I have 2 officers right now that work on my mid shift on the north side that were part of this years ago, and they came and spent a summer working in North Minneapolis and went back and said goodbye to their agency and applied here, and we were fortunate to hire them. Now, of course, it's not part of the we're not trying to steal, but I will. More than happy to take good police officers with experience from anywhere. So that's a recruitment ploy there. But they really are out there to try to suppress gunfire, reduce the number of gun incidents. It adds a complement of officers that can respond quickly to gun calls and shooting calls, secure scenes, make arrests when possible. But it's just an added resource, and it's been really beneficial in a lot of ways in the past. So we're continuing that strategy. And then lastly, I'm going to talk about community engagement. We have a group of officers that are called our Neighborhood Director Patrol team, and they work out in the neighborhoods and go to business meetings. They go to neighborhood block club meetings. They go to the neighborhood organization meetings. And in addition to that, they focus on low-level crime. A lot of citizen satisfaction comes from the response that they may only have one contact with a police officer in their entire life, and it may be a very low-level incident, and sometimes those pend for long periods of time when there's higher priority incidents taking place. So one of the priorities I've given that group is to pay attention to the calls that are sitting and pending, and if possible, pick up those low-hanging fruit and go to those calls and provide service, a very positive service, and make sure those people had a positive experience, even if it's a low-level crime. So that's one of the things they're tasked with. There's many other strategies we have going on, but I'll take questions afterwards. Thanks.
Hi there. I'm Kathy Wade. I'm the inspector in the 5th Precinct, which covers Southwest Minneapolis. So you hear a lot of us talking about relationships, and it really is important to us to build on what we have, and having a collaboration with other organizations or social service agencies that already exist really is a force multiplier for all of us. So hence you'll hear about that relationship building from each one of us. The Uptown Bar District is an area that is quite lively. With the summer upon us, it will continue to be so this summer as it was in the past. We're excited to always see more people out in the area, and with that, we'll have more officers out on patrol in that area as well. We've got 4 officers that will be joining the precinct to work an evening beat, and that will be a focus area for them after about 11 o'clock at night. Having additional officers out on foot, being an extra set of eyes and ears, an opportunity to meet with some of the area businesses. It's really important to us to make sure that we're continuing on developing those relationships as well. In addition to that, we're really working with the bars and their managers to make sure that they're collaborating amongst each other, making sure that they have that opportunity and don't see each other as, they're really an enemy in the consumer business, but making sure that they're getting out there and sharing information that they can. They've been a really tremendous asset for us in sharing information with the police, and so the more that we can have everybody working together, of course, the better off we all are. So we'll continue in that effort. Along with that, we'll be having business licensing continue with working foot beats with us. They're a wonderful partner in getting out into the bars. We actually walk through the bars and meet with staff and customers, make sure that all is well, and continuing with our efforts there, we're going to extend that out outdoors, working with them to really tackle some of the troubles with the taxis versus Ubers. There seems to be some competition out there, certainly with parking as well, and so working collaboratively with those organizations is really important so that we can maintain safety and security. It always makes us a little nervous to see people dodging through traffic to get to their Uber, so just coming up with some stronger tactics as to keeping people safe out there in the traffic flow. Along with the traffic flow piece, we're working with the traffic control agents to help us move traffic along Lagoon. That's kind of a jammed up spot. If you've ever been through there after about 11 o'clock at night, it might take you a while to move through the area. And so we're going to do our best to continue with our efforts there and moving traffic through so that we can get people to where they need to be. In addition to that, theft from motor vehicle. That is another probably thing you've heard about. I know that some media has covered some of the trouble that we're having with theft from motor vehicle in the area. Now, as the summer approaches, we'll see some of this activity shift. In the winter months, we are seeing more of it closer to the uptown area and spreading out into the neighborhoods. When we do see geographic patterns, we make sure that we share that information with businesses and area residents. And of course, with summer, we'll see more activity around the lakes. So we'll be sharing information with the area residents there. And we're already working quite closely with the Park Police, who are a wonderful partner of ours, to cover some of the western regions of the precinct. So we'll continue on with those efforts, sharing information, encouraging people to call 911 when they see suspicious people, particularly in the lots and after hours. So we'll continue focusing on those spots after hours as well. Once those parks close, it's important to us to make sure people are being safe. It's hard in the summer months. People want to stay out a little bit longer out in around the lake area. So we'll continue to patrol and make sure that people are safe in those districts. Stevens Square is an ongoing, continuing effort of ours. It's a neighborhood in the far northeast corner of the precinct. Historically, they've seen a number of violent crimes, so we'll continue our work efforts there. We've got those beat officers that I mentioned earlier. They'll be spending some time in that area from the beginning of their shift until the time that they move down into that uptown area. It's important to us to do this because the crime analysts have determined that a lot of the robberies that have occurred in that area have occurred before 10 p.m. So really flooding that area with those additional patrol officers out on foot, building on the collaboration with the area businesses and with the neighborhood associations will be really important. Having them get out there and get to know the business people and who's living in the area is really important. Of course, we've got beat officers that work there during the day, and they're very well known to the community, so we're just going to build on that with the additional officers. So thank you very much, and I'll answer any questions afterward. Thank you.